It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. You can get the podcast by searching for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the California Report for my local curated list of news stories that matter in the state of California by going to randywangradio.substack.com. And let's start with the California Report. I can't tell you how many people emailed this story. How many people, as soon as they saw it, were like, oh, I'm sure you're going to be talking about this. And well, you're 100% right. And that, of course, is the FBI raid of the superintendent of LAUSD, the nation's second largest school district. Alberto Carvalho has only been in this job for a few years. Before this, he was in Miami. And there is still a lot we don't know. We don't know, for instance, why the FBI has raided his home, because all of the information, all of the search warrants are under seal. Maybe it has to do with another case. Maybe he's the target in this. There have been some reporting from the LA Times that, according to their sources within law enforcement, which I would assume is the FBI, this might have to do with a contract with an AI chatbot that LAUSD paid for because the owner of that company was busted for fraud. They raided Carvalho's home at the LAUSD. They raided his home in San Pedro and LAUSD headquarters. And then they also raided this home in Miami. And originally people thought, oh, that's like where Carvalho used to live, or it's Carvalho's old office. No, it's this guy from this AI chatbot. So what happened here? Is this just your typical, we gave a contract to a vendor that was a friend? Was it, the same kind of idiocy that we've seen with LAUSD for years and years and years? You remember the iPad scandal from 13 years ago, where instead of, getting iPads, we contracted out with a vendor to make much more expensive and much easier to break non-iPads. And instead of grabbing open source free software for education, we contracted with a company that made worse education products. Or does this have to do with, I don't know, things that AI can do that might be real bad if you're the one who licensed it and you're the proprietor of a school district? Like, I don't know, all the weird things that some of these AI chatbots can do, because this technology is still very new, very emerging. We don't know. We will be following this story. It's not like LAUSD has a whole lot of things to be proud of right now. I'm sure while this was happening, the chief antagonist of Alberto Carvalho, the head of the teachers union, UTLA, Cecily Mayart Cruz,
and I want you to be all the way pissed off.
I'm sure she was celebrating this the entire time, because this only makes their position much stronger as LAUSD's teachers union and the SEIU threaten to go on strike.
Hey!
So when we find out more about the raid of Alberto Carvalho, we're going to bring it to you. But even more important than that story is what happened yesterday, where the city of Los Angeles was served a lawsuit, and it includes Karen Bass, and it's a lawsuit from the fired fire chief, Kristen Crowley. Kristen Crowley is alleging retaliation and going after whistleblowers, which are protections in California labor code. So if you are raising concerns about safety issues and you are retaliated against, that is a violation of the labor law. She may have a very valid case here, because it sure seems that with everything that happened, as soon as Kristen Crowley opened her mouth and admitted to Fox 11's Gigi Graciette that, yes, the budget was cut, the department is underfunded, and it has made it harder to respond to these kinds of events, she was a target. And apparently, according to the lawsuit, even after she She wasn't fired from the department. She was demoted and she got moved to another part of the department. But apparently the retaliation has continued. So now she is suing. She wants a jury trial. So maybe a settlement's not going to be enough here. Maybe it's about revenge. Maybe it's about making sure Karen Bass does not get another term, because Karen Bass, from everything it looks like, at least from my end, wanted this chief to fall on her sword for Karen Bass's own incompetence. Because you remember some of the insane things that Karen Bass was saying. Oh, well, the reason I went to Ghana is because the fire chief didn't tell me about the wind. Which something, by the way, I have a hard time believing, because Karen Bass calls herself a news junkie. In fact, she considers herself a P1 listener, not to this station, not to KFI, but to KNX, which is the friendly outlet that will talk to her. And if you've ever listened to KNX, you've heard that they do traffic and weather together every 5 minutes. Maybe it's 10 minutes. I haven't listened in a long time. But believe you me, she knew about the weather. So we knew that was BS. One of the things that Kristen Crowley said when she was trying to appeal her firing to the LA City Council was, Karen Bass wanted me to author an after-action report that made me the sole blame for everything, and I can't do that. She was not going to fall on her sword. And what do we see that happen? As soon as Kristen Crowley was not going to play ball, the objective was to get rid of her and replace her with an appointed fire chief, Ronnie Villanueva, who would do whatever Karen Bass needed to do, which included hiring the PR firm whose main mission was to make sure that in the after-action report, everything was watered down to stop any legal liability from the city and, of course, protect the reputation of Karen Bass. And as this story continues, as every single day, drip, 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 there are more things coming out about the cover-ups that have been going on, the cover-your-ass moves that have been going on at LA City Hall ever since these destructive fires. The more and more I have a theory that I believe is true. If you're confused as to why Nithya Raman is running for mayor, why she made that move at the last minute, I am now convinced it's an insurance policy from the establishment of the city of Los Angeles. Because if all of a sudden we get past the filing deadline, which has already happened, and enough bad press has come out with Karen Bass where she is unelectable, which you would think would already have happened, but this is Los Angeles, so who knows? They have somebody who's already on the ballot that can slide right in there and everything can pick up. That is my theory. I could be wrong, but considering that Nithya has a really hard time justifying why it is she's running for mayor, I think it's the insurance policy. Now, LA County has voted to expand RV restrictions in unincorporated parts because the residents who live in unincorporated LA are sick and tired of homeless RVs and all the problems that come with it, including the blight, including the crime, including the septic tanks. And they say they got to do something about it. And, the little areas that end up usually being the worst governed parts of the county. As bad as the city of LA is, if you live in unincorporated Los Angeles, that means Lindsay Horvath is your mayor. That means Holly Mitchell is your mayor. That means Janice is your mayor. So people, when you are in those unincorporated areas, you don't have a whole lot of representation, but it looks like enough has been enough, and people are starting to realize what a mess these RVs are, and maybe we can figure out ways to make it so you can't just park an RV in a neighborhood. Not good. KTLA has an interesting piece, an LA Times piece that they reported on showing the worst intersections in Los Angeles. And I don't know how anyone is worse than La Cienega and Fairfax. And I know that because that's where the radio station used to be. And it is awful. It is hell. But there are so many awful intersections. The way they did this was like travel time and notorious, how many accidents there are. But there's so many terrible places to get around. This city is such a mess, which, by the way, this isn't a city of Los Angeles thing. But I just have to point it out because it's happened 2 days in a row now, and it is weird. As you know, I'm a big fan of the Waymos. Loved riding them in San Francisco. Currently in Los Angeles, they're only in like Santa Monica, Culver City, and some parts of downtown LA. And 2 days in a row, as I'm trying to drive to the radio station, there is a Waymo sitting on Robertson at Washington waiting to make a right turn, and it's just sitting there. For some reason, it's paralyzed, and it backs up all the traffic till people get fed up and they go around the Waymo. So I don't know what's going on there, but Waymo, you better figure that out or people are going to lose confidence in you real quick. Now, moving on to the Bay Area, here we go. Strike-a-palooza continues in 2026 as the Oakland Teachers Union has authorized a potential strike. They want higher pay, but of course, there's declining enrollment, and the school is facing a massive budget deficit, and it just got out of receivership, might go back into receivership. But this is the game that we play. Meanwhile, in San Jose, they're doing the thing that Oakland Unified was told they needed to do, but kicked the can down the road. Have the very difficult, uncomfortable conversation of, if we've got a 20% decline in enrollment, we really need to be closing schools. Because I don't see those numbers turning around in a place like San Jose or a place like Oakland anytime soon. If you can afford to raise a family in the Bay Area, chances are you can also afford to put them in private school. And that's unfortunate, but these are the real answers. You know, when we constantly are giving contract increases and the revenue is declining, what exactly is the plan here? Is it just to get more money from the state? I'm sure there are some people that's the way to go, but that's what we do in California. We're spending more and more and more per pupil, but we're not seeing the results. So maybe we do need to start having those conversations, and that's happening in San Jose. Meanwhile, this is a smaller school district, but I like this. You know, every school district, it seems, is facing a budget deficit, and it seems that the only answers are beg for more money or make cuts, have layoffs. Well, Redwood City figured out, well, what if we figure out a smarter way to save money? And some school districts already do this, but it's just something to think about. How can you profit off of the land that you already have? Like, for instance, do you have a big open parking lot? How about you put up solar canopies? Cut down on that electric bill, you know, if PG&E will let you. But that's smart. You know, we did that story yesterday of Gilroy not wanting the data center on their land because it uses up so many utilities. Well, I know this because Tony Thurmond is running for governor, and he has this plan where there is like 70,000 square acres or something. There is so much open land that's on school property that he wants to turn into like affordable housing and homeless shelters. Well, why don't you take some of that open land that's on school property and sell it to the tech people that want to build their data centers and then use that money to fund the schools properly? Just start thinking outside of the box. And I had to put this story in here because I've been to this area and I feel for them. But if you've ever been to the Russian River Valley in Sonoma County, it is a beautiful part of the state. And one of the small towns there is Guerneville. And what's unfortunate is in a lot of these towns in Sonoma County near the Russian River is they have to deal with a lot of landslides. You've seen homes that have actually fallen into the river, and yet another neighborhood is under evacuation warning because of possible landslides because of the rain, and the foundations are real shaky. And, you know, you can do whatever you want with your life. There are places that I will never live on a hillside or on top of a river. It's just a little too dangerous. As much as I don't like my boring valley, there are certain things that, you know, I want to make sure the foundation stays for a long time. And then, of course, this is a huge story. There's so much grift going on when it comes to the homeless, and there's so much in San Francisco. So it's not surprising when a CEO of a nonprofit that was supposed to help the homeless stop the spread of COVID and go into trailers, turns out she was embezzling millions of dollars on handbags, on fancy cars, and not helping the homeless. We spend so much money, and it's almost like we don't want to know where it goes, because if we find out where it goes, it's bad. California state senators have unveiled a new proposal that would make it much harder for insurance companies to drop you. I'm on board. Will this pass? Probably not. But I love the idea of the insurance company's got to give you 6 months notice for a non-renewal if they're going to do that. And they have to give you a reason. And if the reason is something you can fix, they have to let you fix it. That seems pretty common sense. For as much as we say our insurance industry is overregulated, I don't think that's true when the insurance commissioner is bought and paid for by the insurance industry, gave them everything they want and more, and they're still dropping policies. And of course, once again, BART has suspended Transbay Tube service again, 2 days in a row, this time over a communication issue. If you want everyone to use public transit, it needs to be reliable. And that is going to be a really hard sell in November to get that tax if it's not reliable. Stick with us. We've got a lot more here on the California Report. You can subscribe to this and get this in your inbox for free every day. And then it's on you to share these stories, to get our share of the attention economy so people start paying attention to what's going on locally. That is the mission statement of this show. RandyWangRadio.substack.com. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's get back to the California Report. In Sacramento, California Republicans put a press conference out. They are putting forth a bill that, if passed, would suspend the gas tax for 1 year. Now, of course, with the supermajority and Gavin Newsom, this is a non-starter. But here's what's interesting about this. In the report from ABC 10, if we stopped collecting the gas tax that makes gas prices here more expensive than anywhere else, including Hawaii, it would only be an $8 billion hit to the budget. And considering that California's budget is now $340 billion, which, by the way, 8 years ago, it was only $200 billion, it almost seems like it's a rounding error at this point. And there's got to be $8 billion of something else you could immediately cut, and immediately you'd have millions and millions of Californians who would feel financial relief in the most unaffordable state in the union. But it's a non-starter. But again, if we're only collecting $8 billion a year, maybe we don't need the gas tax. And I'm going to keep putting this story out there, but I love that it's getting attention, which is the woman from the assembly we're going to try to have on, who is trying to change the law for diversion for criminal defendants when they try to say, I did it because of my mental illness. Because right now the loophole is any violent crime counts, and you can say it's your ADHD. And a whole bunch of grifters were in Sacramento today. Why? Because you had a whole bunch of nonprofits saying Gavin needs to send even more money to the counties that goes even to more nonprofits to solve homelessness. And I am in the boat at this point where I think if we didn't spend any money on this, we'd have the same result. Down in San Diego, this is an interesting one. Claremont High in the San Diego School District, they have to change their mascot because of a new law that has gone into effect this year that you cannot have any mascots related to a public entity like a school that could offend anybody. And so the Claremont Chieftains will become the Claremont Captains. And, you know, if it bothered people, that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. What is my high school now? So I went to Hart High School and Newhall, and we were the Hart High Indians for a very, very, very long time. Now they're the Hart High Hawks. But here's what's interesting. The original two schools in the Santa Clarita Valley were Hart High School and Canyon High School for Canyon Country. And Canyon Country is the Cowboys. So the rivalry forever and ever was the Cowboys and the Indians. And now it's the Cowboys and the Hawks. But, you know, whatever. And I do love this story. And I think we should be spending more government money on programs like this, lowering the cost of spaying and neutering pets to nothing or almost nothing, making it a lot more accessible for people to adopt, and making sure we do not overpopulate our pet population, because we have so much of that going on, and we should be, of course, incentivizing spaying and neutering, because in the long run, it's going to save way more money than it costs to run shelters. The embezzlement fraud continues in Fresno from the Fresno Arts Council. It actually came from a sales tax increase that was supposed to fund parks and the arts. And where did the money go to the arts? To a arts council. And that money got stolen. And I always put up stories from LA County Probation, including a little clip that the Probation Oversight Commission posted. So you know it's not good. You know how The field deputies get transferred to Los Padrinos because nobody at Los Padrinos wants to work because they're getting assaulted by the inmates. Well, now that there's a lack of field deputies, the Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department wants to take over. Great. Eric Swalwell's running for governor. We got a couple of crime blotters, and that's what's in today's California Report. You can get it and share these stories with your friends and social network at randywangradio.substack.com. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KBC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to the California Report at randywangradio.substack.com. And then it's on you. Share those stories so they get out there and people start paying more attention to what's going on in California. Our next guest has been covering local news and politics in Los Angeles County forever. You can get him on Substack, danielguss.substack.com. Daniel Guss, welcome back to the News Blitz.
Hey, brother Randy, thank you for having me back, and congratulations on your Substack. Your audience can learn more in 10 minutes on your Substack than they can all day on the LA Times. I wholeheartedly endorse people signing up for it.
I appreciate that. You know what? It ended up being, I was figuring out ways to organize my show prep every day. And every day we get to about, I load 18 things that we never get to because we only have so much time in a 3-hour show and a 1-hour show. So I'm like, why don't I just make a list of all this stuff and put it out every day? So it's keeping me better organized, but it's also a way for me to share and talk about all the things that I find interesting, not just the 3 or 4 things that we have time for.
Right, exactly. And now it's up to everybody in the audience to be empowered, because I'm telling you, John and Randy and I will actually tell you the truth with no bias. We're just telling you the damn truth. Sign up for his Substack and share it with everybody you know.
Now, Guss, we still don't have much information, but I got to get your instant reaction to what do you think is going on with this FBI raid of Alberto Carvalho?
Well, I want to shout out to our friend, yours, John, and my friend, Jen Van Laar at Red State, because this guy, if you look up Red State, thank you, Jen, has a list of all of this guy's properties in the Miami-Dade area. And I'm trying to figure out, how does a guy who's a public servant, even though we pay him about $500,000 a year to be superintendent of the LAUSD, how does this guy have a multi-million-dollar portfolio in South Florida real estate? I don't know, but I'll tell you something, Randy. It doesn't surprise me at all. If you've seen Jose Huizar and Mitch Englander and Richard Alarcon, whose conviction was overturned, and what's upcoming with Curran Price, it doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is somehow, I don't know about you, what you make in radio, Randy. I know it doesn't pay a lot, but somehow this guy's making about $500,000 a year as the LAUSD superintendent, and somehow, how is that not enough to stay away from the alleged or possibly alleged grift? So it doesn't surprise me at all, but what it does tell everybody in your listening range, in your broadcast range, is that the corruption is thick. From top to bottom, these people in our government, they're not elected on merit, they're not promoted on merit, and despite every red flag that there was about Carvalho before he was hired to come to L.A., they hired him anyway. They ignored all of the red flags. What can I tell you? I'm not surprised at all.
And I'm sure we have a lot more to learn as we're starting to get just a few details about that, but this has probably been in the works for quite some time. The FBI does not move fast, so this could have been something they've been investigating for years and years and years. But let's move on to one of your latest columns, and that is, of course, covering what Karen Bass did with the LAFD After Action Report, where the LAFD apparently hires through their foundation a PR firm whose mission statement is to make sure that above everything else, the reputation of Karen Bass is protected. We have sources that say it was Karen Bass that that she was the one that directed changes to the report, softening the language, not calling it a rekindling, but calling it a holdover fire, because she was pretty sure the city was going to get sued for their negligence. Do you think that she will face any consequences when we're talking about the legal world as more of these revelations are coming out?
Well, let's collectively pray, Randy, that Kristen Crowley, who, by the way, she's got an incredible pension ahead of her. You know, she's 60-something years old. She's got an incredible pension ahead of her. Let's hope she doesn't take an easy out-of-court settlement and forces Karen Bass into depositions. And what people are forgetting, let's hope that Kristen Crowley also throws Marquise Harris Dawson, the city council president, that SOB. Let's hope that she forces him into a deposition, because he was the acting mayor when Bass, Cocktail Karen Bass, was having drinky poos over in Ghana while people were being burned alive and thousands of homes were destroyed. Kristen Crowley was the sacrificial lamb of Karen Bass. She can single-handedly end Karen Bass's career. She could do the same to Marquise Harris Dawson, because she will be able to put them under oath, under deposition, and nobody knows what happened better than she does. Let's hope she doesn't take an out-of-court settlement, because she doesn't have to. And she could spend the rest of her life as a civic hero if she does that.
And it sure seems that that's the way this is going. They've already said they want this to be a jury trial. And, you know, we're talking about a reputational harm where, you know, she has been the scapegoat for all of this incompetence. And what she's alleging in this lawsuit, it's pretty huge when it comes to whistleblower protections and whistleblower laws and retaliation in the state of California. There are a lot of laws protecting employees, even city employees, from being retaliated against when you're raising concerns about safety. And just the discovery phase alone could be incredibly damaging to this very corrupt administration.
Right. And I actually have some of my best sources are some of those whistleblowers. This city government and the county and the state government, but this city government, the LAPD and the LA Fire Department has scapegoated people who do the right thing as civil servants. They try to destroy their lives, and they end up spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of our taxpayer money to make up for, to make whole for the retaliation that they inflicted on good whistleblowers from the LAPD and the LAFD. I know some of them personally. They're good people. She could be next in line, and she would be the highest ranking person to ever hold these SOBs' feet to the fire. Karen Bass, but also Marquise Harris Dawson, that guy.
Well, and not only that, but you look at the heart of the things that Kristen Crowley was saying when she made her appeal to the city council when Karen Bass originally did fire her. And it was all about this after action report, how she was told she needed to fall on her sword. She was told she needed to say that everything was her fault. She doesn't want to go along with that. So what happens? She gets fired. Karen Bass handpicks the interim chief, Ronnie Villanueva, who was instrumental in making sure the after action report didn't show any blame for Karen Bass for any of the problems going on at LAFD.
Right, exactly. And let me also throw the LA Times under the bus. Now, it's good that they reported on it, and it's good that the LA Times reported on this confidential internal memo. But I'm telling your audience for the first time, Randy, there's a lot of stuff in that 13-page document that the LA Times did not disclose. I can't mention it now. We're doing things behind the scenes here at my Substack, and there is more to be said about that. So, yeah, so Villanueva was a guy who's somebody who was liked by the rank and file at the LAFD, but there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes about what they tried to do with this after-action report and all of the little things that the LA Times left out of their report. And I'll have more to say on that in the coming days and weeks.
Well, if you do that, you're going to be listed by the city of Los Angeles as a negative reporter, like Gigi Graciette on Fox 11.
Well, at least they're on the list. I wasn't. And how do you think, Randy, that I know that I was not on that list? Take a guess, Randy. How do you think I know that I was not on that list?
Oh, I bet we're going to find out at danielguss.substack.com.
Yeah, and so the LA Times did good job. Honestly, God, Elaine Techmedian is actually a really good reporter. She's a straight shooter. I can't say much for the entity as a whole, but Elaine is a good reporter, but they didn't tell you the whole damn story. I will.
Well, I'm excited for that. What I do like about this whole exchange is, one, you got to applaud the LA Times whenever they do something right, and then you chastise them when they do something wrong. But the reaction of Karen Bass to the LA Times, she was in pure shock that she thought that this organization would be in the can for her all the way. And the fact that somebody is in there reporting on the facts, reporting on this cover up, it is rattling her cage, and she is not happy about it.
Well, what a coincidence, Randy. Isn't it interesting that this, the LA Times does do a good job on the major things, the terrorist attack in San Bernardino, their coverage of this, etc. They've covered up so much other crap. We don't owe the LA Times anything. But, yeah, I will give them credit for this. But isn't it something that the LA Times is Johnny or Joni on the spot once the California Post is on the scene? Because it's like the California Post is a counterbalance to all of the things that the LA Times has done to harm Southern California, to harm the county of Los Angeles and the state. So I have to give credit to the California Post because they are the counterbalance that I think is actually forcing the LA Times to do their damn job. And by the way, me personally, when the LA Times tries to go public later this year, I'm not buying a share. I don't see how that thing's going to survive, and rightly so, but that's a little side comment to you.
We're speaking with Daniel Guss. You can subscribe to his Substack, as I am, at danielguss.substack.com. Last question before you go. I need your take on this little theory that I've been developing, because I cannot understand for the life of me why Nithya Raman is running for mayor. Every interview, she talks in great generalities about things that are wrong with the city, but doesn't go after Karen Bass, doesn't go after the failures of Karen Bass, including for things that are very obvious, like the after-action report and the response to the fire. My theory at this point is why Nithya Raman got in this race in the last minute is an insurance policy. If Karen Bass by June becomes completely unelectable with everything that's coming out, Nithya can slide right in there because she's already filed. What do you think about Nithya Raman at the last second running for mayor?
I kind of agree with you, but not as the insurance policy thing. I want to hand it to the DSA. They have facilitated one winning election on city council after another and getting City Controller Kenneth Mejia in there. So they've done a good job of promoting their views. But I think that they smell blood in the water. I will tell you that as of right now, Randy, I think Karen Bass is absolutely unelectable. I think she was unelectable as of a month or two ago. I think she's absolutely, positively zero chance to be elected as of right now. The good news for the rest of us people with common sense and for Spencer Pratt is that I actually believe that what they may see as an insurance policy is going to split the vote and force Nithya or Karen into a runoff with Spencer Pratt, who basically represents everybody else, and he doesn't. He appears to have a spine. So welcome to the race, Nithya. I have a lot to say about the homeless people in CD4 where I live, and you gotta love a multimillionaire socialist telling us that we could have people defecating on our front sidewalk, but God forbid it happens in her district. I look forward to this local race more than any I've ever looked forward to in the past.
Oh, I'm with you on that. It just got real exciting. The website, danielguss.substack.com. That's danielguss.substack.com for the real inside info on what's going on at LA City Hall. Daniel Guss, thank you as always for coming on the show.
Likewise, my friend. I'll talk to you later.
It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC, and I have something really exciting to report, and it's something that I got to thank each and every one of you that is listening for. For the last 2 months, you have heard us endlessly talk about SaveProp13.com, the mission from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association to protect and strengthen Prop 13. We did 2 great live remotes, one at the Pineapple Hill in Sherman Oaks, one at Gladstone's in Long Beach. We, for 4 hours a day, every day for over a month, we're telling you to get those signatures, get the ballot, get the proposal in the mail, get people to sign the proposition so we can get this thing on the ballot. Well, it's paid off. Now, this thing's not a done deal yet, but these numbers are pretty exciting. And you are the ones that get to take credit for it because we can spread the message, but y'all spread the word. California required 874,000 valid signatures to get what they're calling the Local Taxpayer Protection Act on the November ballot. That's the Save Prop 13 Act. And the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association just turned in 1.3 million signatures. That is huge. That is well above what they need and enough cushion that if they throw out a whole bunch of signatures, it looks like, and again, I don't want to jinx this thing, but it very well looks like this thing could be on the ballot. And if you aren't familiar with what this could do, you think of things like Measure ULA, Measure A, all of these citizens' initiatives that were put on the ballot by a union or a special interest. They don't have the same threshold as regular taxes put on by the counties do, where it has to be 2/3. That was in Prop 13. If it's a citizens initiative, which means nothing, now it's 51%. And that's how they got ULA through. That's how they got Measure A through. And that's how they've gotten so many tax hikes through. They're trying this in San Diego. Well, if this thing gets on the ballot and it passes, it's going to reverse a whole lot of those taxes. So thank you for getting those signatures in. We'll give you updates. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.